Onyx 1-2 Mike Oscar, runway 27, clear for takeoff.
Hello and welcome to this week's Monday briefing from the Calm Cockpit Podcast. If you're new to our Monday briefings, these are short episodes designed to help you start your aviation week off on the right foot. Rather than diving into a big, huge topic, we take one practical idea, something you can carry with you on your next flight, that helps you become not only a safer pilot, but a calmer, more intentional one. I'm Geeta Brown. I'm a midlife student pilot, and I'm also a yoga and music educator with over 30 years of experience of helping high performers improve their performance and their lives, but without adding stress. And I am super excited about today's episode and to share a little time with you today because it's all about one simple concept that I learned from a guest, and this concept has been resonating with me for months. And I really thought it was worth slowing down, sharing with you, and seeing how it resonates throughout your week. It's one of these simple ideas. And the theme is quite literally slowing down. I'm going to play a little clip for you in a few moments here from one of my favorite conversations we've had on the show with Brian Schiff. Brian is a seasoned captain for a major U.S. airline. He's got over 21,000 hours of flight time, which is, that just blows my mind. And he has experience in 100 aircraft types. I'm up to 2 so far, so I have a ways to go. He's a 40-year Gold Seal Flight Instructor, an FAA Safety Team Representative, and he served as an FAA-designated examiner. He is super respected in the aviation community. He's very engaging, but he also has a very practical teaching style, and he also has this lifelong commitment to helping pilots become safer and more proficient. And I have really, truly loved every guest we've had on the show. I'm like, this has been my favorite. I love this episode. But I have to say, this story that Brian shared seems to have taken on a life of its own. Since Brian's episode aired, I've heard pilot after pilot mention this idea to me. And in fact, our friends over at the Midlife Pilot Podcast, hey guys, they recently brought it up on their show as well as something that's been sticking with them and changing the way they think a little bit. And I think it's because Brian has given us one of those wonderfully memorable sayings that captures something really important. And he says, quote, "In aviation, there are only 2 speeds, slow and screw up." Now, you may have heard Brian say that before on our show or on other different platforms. But what I loved about our conversation is we got the origin story. We found out where that saying came from. And personally, I don't know if it's because I'm a writer, but I love stories. I can read all the bullet points and checklists and all the AI-generated stuff out there that makes me go, ooh, that's catchy and flashy. But honestly, I tend to forget a lot of that stuff because the stories stay with me and the stories change the way I think. Brian's story about the origin of his famous phrase, it's only, I think, about 3 or 4 minutes long, but I think it's every bit as powerful as the saying, there are 2 speeds in aviation, slow and screw up itself. And I think this story is important because it completely reframes our relationship with time. We tend to convince ourselves that rushing or pushing to add more saves us time or gets us where we want to be faster. But in reality, it often does the opposite. It also adds stress, and it usually increases the chances that we'll miss something important. So listen to the phrase that he says and all that, but listen to the story behind it. I'll let Brian Schiff take it away now. Enjoy this little clip, and I'll meet you on the other side for a few other thoughts. Enjoy. Here's Captain Brian Schiff.
But yet somehow we feel compelled to hurry. And I don't know what that is, why that psychological dynamic exists, but it does. And it's a matter of perceived time. And I learned that we have a perception of how much time we have or how much time we're saving by hurrying that is way off. And so the first time when I learned this was back when I was a 727 captain. I upgraded to captain on the 727. For those of you who don't know what that is, go to the Smithsonian. There's one in there or look it up. But I was flying as about a year. I'd been a captain about a year, and we were into some contract negotiations at the airlines, and we had what was called a WOE program going on. Have you ever heard of a WOE program?
No.
If you got to be a union people to know what that means, but WOE means withdrawal of enthusiasm. So we're in contract negotiations, and we wanted to show how much of an effect we could have if we're just not enthusiastic about on-time arrivals and things like that. Well, we get paid by the hour, so if we go over the scheduled time, we get more pay. So I had my first officer, my engineer. Hopefully no one in management is listening to this and statute of limitations is up. This was, well over 25 years ago. And maybe right around there. But I said, look, we're just going to go. We're going to take this slow. We'll start one engine. We start two engines. We start three. We're crawling, taxiing painfully slow. It was almost painful. Like, how can I go this slow? We were getting all our tasks done. We took off. We flew slow. We did everything at a very slow pace. We landed. We took the longest runway, didn't try to take the short taxi or hurry up. I mean, we are just going painfully slow, crawling. But at the end of the thing, we got there at the end of the flight, and we were on time. And I'm like, how can that be? It wasn't the fact that we really did things much slower. It was the process of acting that way that made it so comfortable and feel like we're just crawling, but we really weren't. We really didn't save that much time. We didn't make that much time, I should say, by going that slowly. But what we all realized, all three of us in the cockpit, was that was a really easy, comfortable, I really like working at that pace kind of flight. And so from that point on, I've always told my first officers, we're going to go, we've got two speeds, slow and screw up. If we need any more time to do anything, we're going to take it. If, landings are imperative, are required, but takeoffs are optional. And we don't have to take off until we're absolutely ready. We can let people go ahead of us. We can let other aircraft go ahead of us. We can do what we have to do to make this operation slowly. And like the biggest place I've seen this in training pilots, either in GA or the airline, is watching them do a go around. They feel like it's a very fast-paced maneuver, and they hurry through the paces. And lo and behold, they'll be sitting there climbing out in a 172 RG, and the thing just isn't climbing. Like, well, you want the gear up? But when you go really quickly, you tend to miss things like that. And so, yeah, the two speeds things makes for a very calm cockpit.
Oh, I just love that story. I really thought it was worth highlighting for you guys. And I've been thinking about it ever since I heard it, like I said in the intro. And it's really been helpful to me to reframe it, though, not just for flying. Because I started using it in my early days as a student pilot when everything is coming at you. And I sort of felt like I was just stabbing at the controls, like even setting up the radio. I was always feeling sort of flustered because I didn't know how things worked. And I used to tell myself then, slow and screw up, just push the button, see what happens. If it's the wrong, navigation channel, then you'll push the other button. I would use it to really slow myself down. But man, I've been expanding that now. And I've been thinking maybe it's something that we can practice every single day. Let me give you my own little example. There's been a lot happening in the Brown household this summer. The biggest thing recently amongst a lot of other happenings has been that our youngest dog, who's only 2 years old, I have a Doberman Pinscher, he's become very, very ill. And it happened over the course of 3 to 4 weeks that just things kept happening. And he actually ended up at the animal hospital this past week in critical care. And we're finally getting some answers, and it looks like we have a path forward, which is great. But for a week and a half there, every morning before heading to flight school, I was caring for him first. And the accidents that were happening were messy, if you can imagine that. And you could probably imagine what happened next. I was behind schedule, like every day. I could feel myself beginning to rush. And one morning I just stopped myself and I said, there are two speeds, slow and screw up. If I'm a few minutes late because I've been caring for a critically ill dog, then I'm a few minutes late. That's it. What I don't need to do is sprint around the house, rush, grab only like a crappy protein bar instead of actually slowing down and maybe making a smoothie that has more real food in it. I don't need to show up frazzled. I don't need to show up more stressed than I already am, because then I'm going to be mentally behind the day and I'm going to carry that right into the training. And that little sentence caught me in my tracks that morning, and I just slowed down. And the rest of the day flowed with so much more ease. All of the stress was still there, but my relationship to it had changed. And that's been my bigger takeaway and why I wanted to share this with you guys, because I feel like the airplane is a magnifier. The habits that we have on the ground tend to follow us in the cockpit. Guess what? We don't just magically become, fantastic, clear thinking individuals just because we've started the engine or started the pre-flight. Yes, our training for sure teaches us habits, procedures, and decision making that inform the way we think, the way we react. However, everything we know about the brain shows us that when we are under pressure, our brains often fall back on our deepest habits. If our default mode is to rush, constantly multitask, to race the clock, to fill every available moment with another thing we need to do to, quote, get ahead, the chances are that this tendency is going to show up in the airplane as well. So lately, I've been practicing slowing down in ordinary moments, packing my flight bag, walking from the house up to the car, even washing the dishes. I've been like slow or screw up. So instead of trying to get through those moments, I've actually been present for them. Because really, there is no next. There's only this moment. And maybe this moment is where our calm cockpit actually begins. So that's my invitation for you this week. Notice where you habitually rush, or if you're not a rusher, notice where you habitually try to add more in. Well, if I can just get this done early, then I'll be ahead. That constant, I've got to get ahead is just another form of rushing. And adding more onto your plate is another form of rushing. So notice where those little habits are and do a little experiment. Slow down. See what you notice. Repeat that phrase to yourself. There are two speeds, slow and screw up. And try it the slow way and then observe the effects for yourself. And you'll know what's useful and you want to take with you and what's not so useful. But if you make any interesting discoveries this week, I would so love to hear about them. Man, I love getting your emails. It's so rich to me to be developing these relationships with you guys. So thank you for everyone who messages us. Drop me an email at calmcockpit@gmail.com. Let me know how it's going. If you have any little story or anecdote that was helpful or useful for you, would really love to hear it. So really give yourself permission this week to embrace that wonderful advice from Captain Brian Schiff. There are two speeds in aviation, slow or screw up. May you have a wonderful, slow, intentional, chill, happy, focused week. Have a fantastic week. And until next time, fly smarter and stress less.